about the potential of Zion maybe getting traded, and that it was kind of like the course had been run in New Orleans.
I wouldn't count on Zion getting traded now. I think that rested on them, the Pelicans trying to get in the top 2, top 3. We've been talking about it for weeks.
Zion Williamson slander is getting kind of ridiculous at this point, and I think I could tell you why. I mean, after free agency, the NBA starts to slow down after Summer League, so maybe the NBA media is just trying to make something out of nothing. But we're here to bring you guys the latest information on Zion Williamson, whether or not I believe in it, and I'm sure you could already tell which one it is currently. So before we get to the content, we are 5,000 subscribers away from hitting 800,000 subscribers. When we do that, we're going to be splitting $1,000 between 5 subscribers that turn on my notifications on this channel. Now that we got all of that out of the way, cue the intro. The NFL and NBA season are officially over, and I need something to hold me over until at least the NFL season comes back. So I've been playing prize picks for the WNBA and the MLB, and I've been fairly successful. It's a good way to get some extra action on games that I wouldn't really watch otherwise. I post my picks onto my Instagram story daily, and I've been hitting on a decent amount of them. And right now, when you use my promo code microphone, they'll double your deposit up to $100. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Zion Williamson was the last player to be dubbed the greatest NBA prospect since LeBron James. And ironically, Adrian Wojnarowski didn't say this about him.
This is the most highly anticipated player to ever enter. Maybe not only the greatest prospect in the NBA's history, maybe the greatest prospect in the history of team sports.
And fortunately for Zion Williamson, the moment he entered into the NBA, he was placed in a remarkable situation. I mean, I grade general managers based upon their abilities to manage assets properly. For instance, I don't think the Portland Trail Blazers did a great job with their assets over the past 2 years. The return that they got for players like Norman Powell, Robert Covington, Josh Hart, DJ McCollum wasn't necessarily the greatest in my opinion. But you look at a team like the New Orleans Pelicans, and they were able to turn Anthony Davis into Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, and 3 first-round picks, including the number 4 pick in the 2019 NBA draft. The Pelicans would then trade the number 4 pick in said draft to Atlanta for pick 8, 17, and 35. Although pick number 8 is now ironically on the Los Angeles Lakers, that wasn't where it stopped for David Griffin. He brought in JJ Redick to potentially mentor Zion Williamson. He brought in a shot guru to remake Lonzo Ball's jumper, which was a very difficult task at that. The one thing that I think David Griffin did a horrible job at was finding the right head coach. It took him some time. He had to go from Monty Williams to Stan Van Gundy, and from Stan Van Gundy to Willie Green, which I currently believe is the right head coach for them. But even furthermore, if you need further evidence of managing their assets properly, New Orleans Pelicans would trade Drew Holiday and receive Steven Adams, Eric Bledsoe, and 2 future first-round picks and 2 pick swaps with Milwaukee. And through it all, the one thing we could agree on is the fact that David Griffin did a great job. Minus the head coaching hire, that is something completely different. That took him some time, but he eventually got it right, in my opinion. But the one thing that didn't go well for Zion is the fact that he had a lot of off-the-court drama from the moment he got drafted. I mean, almost immediately after getting drafted, Zion Williamson suffered an injury to his knee. He would make his debut later on in his rookie season in an electric debut versus the San Antonio Spurs. Very shortly after, he would injure his ankle. Then once again, during that summer, he would spend an extended period of time in conditioning. Then he would injure his knee in August of 2020. Fortunately, during his sophomore season, we got to see Zion Williamson unleashed, and it was a sight to behold. He averaged 27 points per game off of 61% from the field, but that was his last healthy-ish season. He played 61 games that season. The very next year, he didn't play an entire season because of a foot injury, and through it all, we were just getting image after image after image of Zion Williamson looking out of shape. On top of this, there were rumors off of the court that Zion's family didn't like the fact that he was on New Orleans. There's additional sketchy situations that attributed to the fact that Zion may not want to be on the Pelicans. For instance, when the Pelicans traded for CJ McCollum would tell us straight up that Zion never called him to welcome him to the team.
I haven't had conversations with him directly. I've spoken to some people close to him and look forward to sitting down with him sooner than later, but I don't really. I know about as much as you do right now, but really? I'm going to get.
JJ Redick, his former teammate turned hot take analyst, would roast him on First Take for this.
I was his teammate. I can describe him as a detached teammate.
This, combined with the fact that Zion just couldn't stay in shape, resulted in there being rumors that Zion may not want to be on the Pelicans, which was shocking considering the fact that when he does play for the Pelicans, they were quite literally the top seed in the West during the first 29 games of the season. Then once he got injured, things started to crumble. This team clearly is an awesome team. We saw their potential during the 2022 playoffs versus the Phoenix Suns without Zion. The right pieces are in place around Zion Williamson. Things would unfortunately take a turn for the worse this offseason, where at first we got a nice wholesome announcement that Zion Williamson was expecting a child. That situation took a turn for the worse when we found out that Zion was in a very strange love triangle with an OnlyFans model and a stripper. And this, combined with the fact that Shams Charania even said that the New Orleans Pelicans are trying to get Scoot Henderson
to aggressively pursue a top pick, potentially 2 or 3.
The Pelicans would make Zion Williamson available ahead of trying to get into that top end of the draft.
But the Pelicans are among teams seriously pursuing that number 2 overall pick.
Resulted in Zion Williamson being in a myriad of trade rumors. Immediately, we were drumming up scenarios. Maybe Zion Williamson will go to the Portland Trail Blazers to team up with Damian Lillard. Maybe Zion Williamson will get traded to the Hornets, and that's what he needs to revitalize his career. But ultimately, the New Orleans Pelicans decided to stand pat. After all, when Zion Williamson does play, your team is incredible. Why would you want to give up on that? Well, it seems like now that things are quiet on the Zion Williamson front, of course, the media kind of has this witch hunt to try to find a reason to create some drama around Zion Williamson. So the first piece of information we got was from Shams Charania, which this was kind of obvious. I really would have loved to see Zion Williamson get traded to the Charlotte Hornets, and I thought it'd be a cute story. He'd be really close to his hometown. Maybe that's what he needs to reignite his passion for basketball. Maybe he'll get in shape when he's closer to home. I don't really know. But Shams Charania told us what we all expected when he went on the Pat McAfee show today and said whether or not you could expect Zion to get traded.
About the potential of Zion maybe getting traded, and that it was kind of like the course had been run in New Orleans.
I wouldn't count on Zion getting traded. Now, I think that rested on them, the Pelicans trying to get in the top 2, top 3. We've been talking about it for weeks, even before the draft. They wanted to get high up. They wanted to go get Scoot Henderson. And I think the fact that they weren't able to do it, to my knowledge, Zion Williamson's working out. There was just that video, I think a week or 2 ago, of him doing a 360 dunk at a camp. If Zion Williamson's 100% healthy, the
100%.
Pelicans have a shot to be a true contender in the Western
Is this
Conference.
professional athletics? You don't have to be 100%.
Now, I want you to know that the original theory of Zion getting traded made a lot of sense. Even though it's not going to happen, the Pelicans were making some very interesting moves, like firing someone that Zion Williamson was very close to, like Teresa Witherspoon. There were reports about the Pelicans being dismayed by Zion Williamson's behavior. But at the same time, I will be honest, I don't think Zion Williamson is the most troublesome individual, even in his entire draft class. It's really hard to remember this, but Zion Williamson is still a young man. I mean, the guy quite literally turned 23 over this past week, and he's making mistakes that I think is normal for a person in his early 20s to make. Maybe he should be taking his diet a little bit more seriously. Maybe he's going through some tough times as well. Maybe he is making a mistake with the women that he chooses to surround himself with. You can't necessarily expect every athlete at the age of 23 to have the maturity that it takes to win a championship at the age of 23. That's part of just growing up as a human being. But here's the thing. As soon as Shams came out with this information, it didn't take very long for Rick Bucher to pull some BS out of his I mean, listen to this. Zion Williamson reportedly has no interest in developing a floater and a pull-up jumper. Where are the floaters? Up and under layups. His pull-up jumper's at the elbow. Now, from what I've been told, he's shown no interest in developing any of those tricks. Bro, the fact that he's calling them tricks just automatically makes me want to nullify whatever Rick Bucher's saying, but moving on. Tricks that Blake Griffin learned along with a decent three-point jumper when the injury started to pile up for him and allowed him to single-handedly single-handedly dragged the Detroit Pistons to a playoff berth. Trying to compare any individual to Blake Griffin is wild, considering how he had a season and a half of productivity for the Detroit Pistons before his game fell off of a cliff. I do agree, you should try to evolve your game as much as you possibly can, and I do believe Zion Williamson does have the potential to shoot the 3-ball eventually. I said historically, I base a player's ability to convert from 3 based upon their free throw percentage. Zion Williamson attempted 8.6 free throws per game during this past season and the season prior, and his free throw percentage was about 70%. I think if you get him with the right shot coach, then you could potentially develop a 3-ball. But there's quite literally footage of Zion Williamson working on his jumper. This is just ridiculous. It seems like right when the storyline around Zion Williamson is gone, there's people that are looking for a reason to hate on the young man. At the end of the day, man, just know on this channel, if there's nothing to talk about, then I probably won't upload. I would never go and dig and try to find a reason to hate on a player like this. I honestly think that if Zion comes into this season and is in shape, then the Pelicans could potentially be a #1 seed once again. I think the team built around him is wonderful. You can't say the Pelicans made the right or wrong decision until you see how Zion's career pans out. This is one of those 50-50 calls. This is a coin flip. Either you traded Zion Williamson and you get a huge return for him and you move on with the core you have and Zion goes somewhere else and develops into a superstar, or Zion Williamson may have been traded away and then his career could fall off of a cliff and he can no longer be the player that he once was due to injuries, or you retain him and he becomes a superstar, or you trade him and he becomes a superstar. At the end of the day, we got a great sample size of Zion, and we know that this young man has the potential to be one of the top 3 players in the NBA in the future. The problem is him staying healthy and getting on the basketball court, and hopefully this season we'll be able to see that, because when Zion Williamson is playing, it is a sight to behold. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about all this? I know a lot of this stuff may have been obvious, but I figured it was enough for us to bring you a video on it. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.